go. Okay. So I'm going to introduce one of our candidates for Board of Ed, and it's Leela Mitra. So why don't we start off by you telling us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be a board member?
Sure. So my name is Leela Mitra. I'm 24 years old. I'm the eldest daughter of two immigrants here in Mamaroneck. I have two little brothers. One of them is recently out of MHS, and the other one is about to join MHS in the fall. So I went through all three tiers of the school system. I went through Central, Homix, and then Mamaroneck High School. And I really wanted to just give back to the community that helped raise me at the end. And I guess for a little professional background, I graduated from Fordham University with a bachelor's degree in political science. I have a lot of various experiences. I worked with the New York State Department of Human Rights and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand's office in her immigration department. And after graduating college, I joined AmeriCorps. I was placed actually at Mayor de Blasio's Office of Immigrant Affairs. That was mostly data work where I helped run the programs that provide free legal aid to immigrant New Yorkers in the 5 boroughs. And my last job was as a case planner in foster care at a nonprofit in the Bronx called Rising Ground. Unfortunately, that work was halted due to the pandemic. But nonetheless, all of my experiences just helped foster a need in me to keep helping families as best as I can, and especially in this community because, you know, I've been here since I was 8 years old, so it means a lot to me. I wanted to continue to dedicate my time and experience and insight to Mamaroneck and Larchmont.
Terrific. So CURE exists to expand education around systemic racism and inequity. How do you think our district can expand that education? And how will you as a board member lead to bring together the differing opinions in our district about the importance of equity and anti-racist education?
Mm-hmm. Well, first and foremost, I think we need to get used to having these conversations. They, you know, to a point where they shouldn't cause eye rolls or make anyone sweat anymore. They're just things that need to be addressed. And an important part of educating ourselves is making sure we educate ourselves and then we grow from it. Otherwise, it's not very useful. So I think it's important to take the time to educate ourselves and then self-reflect on how our community might be doing the things that we're learning about. And I think, you know, that could look like an audit. It could look like analyzing data or maybe focus groups or a community forum. I think educating people, we have a lot of resources, especially when it comes to CURE and, you know, a lot of organizations here. It's really so helpful what everyone has put out. I love the workshops and the information that you guys have on your website, by the way. But yeah, I think especially when it comes to equity and race and topics like this, people fear change because they think that in order to lift people up, you have to push others down, which is absolutely not the case. So, you know, going about these conversations is so crucial. It needs to be, you know, really well thought out because the last thing you want to do is have someone further bury their heels into, you know, their views, which might be harmful. So I think a way that the board could maybe help promote this is maybe incorporating a section in each board meeting where we have maybe a representative from the DET or anyone who wants to come talk about these issues or concerns they've noticed or maybe an experience that they've had, just really bring it to the table as a conversation, you know, more often than it already is. And also it shouldn't only be a topic of conversation when something bad happens, right? That's part of normalizing it, is just maybe incorporating it into the agenda once in a while so that we are used to hearing these things. Yeah, I think trainings are also extremely helpful. I know that we have those sometimes. I think it would be great to have them for, you know, really the administrators, the people who hold a lot of power right now, and also teachers, because the teachers are, you know, with children constantly. They witness potential situations. And, you know, we need to support them as much as we can so that they can help the students in those situations. So yeah, I hope I can create a safe space for discussions and encourage people to, have their fellow Mamaroneck citizens' backs when it comes to these topics. I want people to feel comfortable.
Thank you. Can you speak to what you believe are some of the issues around equity and access here in the Mamaroneck School District?
Yeah. One thing that I've noticed is that not everything is translated into Spanish, which, a large portion of our community, they might also speak English, but if Spanish is your first language, then when it comes to understanding things that have to do with the budget or your child's school, it might be helpful to have things in your first language. So that was something that I noticed, and I'm also trying to incorporate that into my campaign just because I do want people to understand that it's something I want to work towards. And another issue I know is the issue of zoning to reduce segregation. That's been under a lot of debate. I've read a lot into this topic, and the options that are being considered, they might seem great on paper. I think my issue is that I don't have them within the context of Mamaroneck, which is crucial. Even though things seem like they might work as a concept on a piece of paper, I would need to know, how Mamaroneck families will be affected by these things, how we would have to reallocate funds, how will kids get to school if it's now 20 minutes away and they can't walk. There's so many things to consider that I haven't fully formed an opinion yet, which I know some people might want, but I just feel like I need a lot more information and a lot more context so I can understand how Mamaroneck and Larchmont would be affected. And lastly, I think that there have been some issues concerning literacy in the district when it comes to kids. This is obviously important because literacy is the foundation of, children's educational careers and also eventually their real careers. So I think it could have something to do with the pressure that we put on making it to certain reading levels. It might be the way that we test students. It might be how accessible we make different reading materials to different students. And unfortunately, these issues, they existed before the pandemic, but the pandemic made them somewhat worse because now kids were stuck doing a lot of this work at home. So it was, proven especially challenging, but those are some of the issues that I've observed so far.
Terrific. What would you do as a trustee to ensure decisions made by the board are inclusive to the needs of all students?
Mm. I genuinely do want students to have a louder voice when it comes to these decisions, just because they are affected by it in their day-to-day life. I think they deserve to, have their insight heard. Maybe whether it be incorporating, some kind of student tip box or designated time slots, like I mentioned earlier, where students are allowed to come in to board meetings and share their opinions. I think that these designated spots in the agenda would be a lot more helpful than they seem, just because a lot of this is also fear and intimidation. Going up in front of a group of people in a microphone, it's a little intimidating. So I think if you already open that up and you create a path for them where we're already expecting something, then it'll make things a lot easier. So I would hope that we could hear from students when it comes to that. We also need to remember that not every student or family is able to advocate on their behalf. So it means we need to find ways through our own research to put ourselves in their shoes and consider what might be in their best interest and serve people whose voices aren't always in the spotlight that way.
Thank you. The goal, the goal of an equity audit is to identify institutional practices that produce discriminatory trends and data that affect students. Schools and districts conduct audits to analyze data in various key areas such as systems and structures, quality instruction, student achievement, and hiring practices. Do you believe the Mamaroneck School District should engage in such a process, and why or why not?
I think so, definitely. I think data is really crucial in understanding where a system is doing well and where we're improving and when we're slacking overall. I'm a little biased just because my work at the mayor's office was involving a lot of data, and it was in a way an audit because I collected the data. I had to connect the dots and understand, what are the communities that we're not reaching, and how can we get to them, and how can we provide our resources to them. And we wanted to make sure we reached all the immigrants in all the boroughs who needed it. And we couldn't have done this without the data that we collected. So we would send this data to City Council afterwards, and it helped them fully understand how to reallocate the budget and actually help people. So I think that having this in-depth look at students and schools could show us things that we might not even have considered yet, whether that be good or bad. But I think it could be really beneficial to be able to see our strengths and weaknesses right in front of us.
Okay, great. Last question. How will you incorporate voices that are often left out of decision making in our community?
Yeah, this is really difficult to do, and it definitely won't be an easy or overnight fix, because it's a combination of a lot of different intersectional qualities that make people either feel like they're not heard, or not trust the system, or it's a sign of a neglectful system. Um, I want to make sure that all the emails that are sent out from the town and from the Mamaroneck Union Free School District are translated in Spanish. I think that'll make a big difference, just because sometimes these things, are hard to understand even in English. They really are. There's a lot of administrative jargon. When it comes to the budget, there's a lot of things that people don't understand. So the least we could do is, put it in their language. But the next thing I would say is actually maybe try to simplify the language, just because I know we also have so many working parents that don't necessarily have the time to watch a 3-hour board meeting just to decipher things. And so it might be a little more helpful, even if we can't shorten things, maybe just to simplify things so that once they do sit in it once in a while, they know what's going on. So I think it's an issue of accessibility when it comes to bringing certain voices that aren't heard back into the spotlight. It's, making sure that they feel like we are reaching out for them, and that they can come forward if they want. I think people tend to feel more comfortable trying to get their voices heard if they feel like there's an effort to listen from the other side. Yeah.
Thank you, Leela, for taking the time to answer our questions. Why
Yeah.
don't you just tell people how they can find out more about you?
Sure. So my website is mitrafrommamaroneck.com, Mitra for Mamaroneck, and then Instagram, Mitra from Mamaroneck, and Facebook, Mitra from Mamaroneck, and my email is Mitra from Mamaroneck. And I did not use the 4 as in the number, it's FOR, just in case there was a little confusion about that.
Great.
But thank you for having me.
All right. Terrific. Thank you.